right. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for this very important session under the Vera Kogadi campaign as we continue to, of course, mark Cybersecurity Awareness Month. This month, we've been focusing on creating awareness about data protection and cybersecurity, basically helping individuals and organizations understand their roles in staying safe in the digital space. Now, today, our webinar will take us deeper into one of the most pressing cybersecurity threats of our time, ransomware and ransomware as a service models. We are going to explore how these attacks operate, how they've evolved, and how they continue to sustain global cybercrime. Now, to help us unpack this topic, we are privileged to have on board Mr. Conrad Mavira. He is a security analyst at the National Information Technology Authority, NITAU. He brings a wealth of extensive experience in penetration testing and delivering hands-on training in cybersecurity to organizations like NITA, FUE, UIBFS, and various banks that he has as well been able to train. Currently, he's pursuing a master's degree in information security and digital forensics at the University of East London. He also holds a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science, and he has earned multiple certifications, such as the Certified Red Team Infrastructure Developer, Certified Red Team Analyst Expert, the Multi-Cloud Red Team Analyst, among others. His expertise also covers practical malware analysis, reverse engineering, and triaging. And he also does extensive research and blogging, specializing in APT threat domains, malware analysis, and attack methodologies. Now, our agenda for today is simple. We are going to have a presentation from our speaker, Conrad. And after that, we'll be able to have a Q&A session at the end, and then we'll close it. We expect this to be done in a period of 1 hour. For the ground rules, if you have any questions as we move along, kindly type them in the chat, in the Q&A panel. And if you have any other insights or comments, anything you would want us to know, please type it in the chat. We highly encourage you to put the questions in the Q&A panel so on them. And just this webinar is being recorded, as you may have noticed, and it is also being live streamed on our YouTube channel, Be Safe Online, for future reference. Now, without further ado, allow me hand over to Conrad to take us through today's presentation. Over to you, Conrad, and we are excited to have you.
Okay. For that introduction, I really appreciate. Good afternoon, everyone. I do hope you're well. And thank you for sparing your time to actually come here. So I pray and actually hope that it will not be a waste of time, as I'm going to dive into a few things. The topic has already been introduced, ransomware as a service. And of course, you've been able to know a bit about me. And I think let's get started with the agenda. So some of the objectives that we're going to have to look at are: one, we want to understand ransom as a service and its ecosystem, the initial access ecosystem. We'll go into an overview of seeing what ransomware is. Then we want to understand what it is, especially when we go to how it operates. We'd want to go into the structure, we want to go into the business models, we want to go into key threat actor groups, we want to go into its ecosystem. Yes, we want to go into understanding a bit of ransomware builders. We'll have a practical demo. I'll do a deep dive into some of the builders, the stealers that are out there. We'll also test them, and then I think we'll be able to mitigate the attacks that are out there. Yeah, and then we'll have a small Q&A in the chat. Okay, so what is ransomware and why it matters? So before we go into the models and trying to know the services behind it, we want to first understand what is ransom. So our shows here that denies access to systems or using encryption or destruction, often combined with theft and public extortion. So if you come across, let me say, such type of software, you find that you're actually limited to access of your files, of your data, of your system, and so on and so forth. Yeah, and you find that you cannot, it actually hardens your day-to-day experience. So this is most times, if I may say, the end result of actually what happens, because you find that a business just realizes that it's under attack when it finds a note that, you know, we are we have been hijacked, or maybe we have been ransomed, or so on and so forth. But there's more to that. There's more to just than a pop-up. There's more to, you know, screen takeovers. As you can see on my left-hand side, you're just seeing a ransom note. There's more to that, because these days, as before, ransomware has now actually evolved. Um, if you look at ransomware before, it would just encrypt. So you find that you're going to your workstation and you're trying to access your files, you're trying to start your day, and you cannot actually go beyond that. But now, these days, it's more than that. They have brought in variants of, let me say, double extortion, whereby there's encryption, and then at the same time, there's leaking. So you find that when you try to, let me say, access, or let me say you're trying to retrieve your data, you're being threatened that, let me say, in case you don't release this software at any, I mean, if you don't release if you don't give us, or if you don't pay this at any one time, then you're going to leak your public data to the world, if I may say, for lack of a better word. Then we have triple extortion, whereby they go ahead and it's not just that, let me say, they're going to encrypt and leak, but they're going to actually even continue to add on more things, such as deny of service on the public, let me say, in the services that they access. They're going to even try and, let me say, do more malicious things. They may SWAT, because in the Americas, they normally do swatting, and you find that they try to use the PII that they got from this information to actually go after certain individuals, maybe threatening their lives and so on and so forth. So it becomes like a havoc to so many people. And it comes down to, let me say, business impact. It comes down to downtime. It comes down to, you know, regulatory fines that have been involved. We have reputational damage and so on and so forth. But then this ransomware does not actually segregate who it goes for. Normally, it funnels down from high risk targets to low. So you could have healthcare, you could have finance, you could have critical infrastructure, you could have government, and so on and so forth. So it actually affects everyone. But then, before we go into actually knowing what ransomware is, would want to know, how does ransomware get into your environment? How does it get into your system? How does it get into your, let me say, phone? So I want us to walk this journey together so that we can kind of like get to know how this actually gets into your machine. So I would want you to paint a picture with me with just a framework here, which is the Might Attack framework, whereby it starts with reconnaissance. For example, like how thieves normally aim or target buildings. They get to do, for this instance, for the hackers, they get to do active scanning, whereby they gather victim information, maybe identity, they get to know the infrastructure, they search for open databases, and they try to see, let me say, for an entity, what is present out there. And then from there, with, let me say, the vulnerabilities that could be found from a web server or anything like that that is on the internet, they now have to come up with a way of actually getting access to that. So they come up with resource development, whereby they need to develop the capabilities to access such entities. From there on, they do what they call initial access. So initial access is actually exploiting the vulnerability they got when they did reconnaissance. And then from there, they go on to do execution, which has, let me say here, command and scripting interpreter, and so on and so forth. They deploy shells, they do scheduled tasks, and then they go ahead to do persistence, whereby now that they have they have accessed the web server, they need to have a form of persistence. They need to stay in your environment to be able to do other things. So how they do persistence is by setting up backdoors. And then as they go ahead with that, they need to now, at times, given that the rights they have, they need to actually have more rights, admin privileges, which they call privilege escalation. So from just this framework here, you can see account manipulation, see hijacking execution flow, process injection, and so on and so forth, or use accounts. And we continue to credential access, whereby they could brute force, and then they could continue to discover more. accounts or services that are running within, and they then move lateral movement, information that they could have, and then transfer it back to what they call their command and control servers, where they need to, if I may say, kind of see or let me say filter the amount of data that they have obtained from such entities. And then from there, that's where the impact is the last thing, so that we can to prevent all these things from happening. So the impact normally is just the ransomware being able to encrypt the files and then also deleting the backups, and then you're not able to actually do what? You're not able to actually continue with such like work and so on and so forth. So let's go into the next slide. The first thing we'd have to look at is initial access. How do they get in? Because this is the most critical phase of the attack chain. So before any data is encrypted, the attackers first need a foothold inside your network. Yeah. So they need to find a way of how to actually get or find a way of having access into your system so that they may continue doing all that is needed. So according to Huntress here, it says that this phase known as initial access is where attackers gain their first foothold in a network or system, and it sets the stage for the entire attack chain. So it gives the threat actors the opportunity to exploit the vulnerabilities, steal data, or wreak havoc. So you have to understand that every attacker or every threat actor comes with their different motives actually to be in your environment. And on the left here, in the left, you can see a small image that just shows a brief of the analysis of the initial access vectors that people could use. So we have here VPN, which could be VPN credentials, RDP credentials, SQL, that it could come from pen tests, normal pen tests that have been authorized and are being carried out in an organization. We do phishing and then exploits, and and also exposed external perimeters, which could be firewalls. Let me say firewalls that are accessible over the internet and could have vulnerabilities. So as you can see here, they're split into three: direct vectors, indirect vectors, and then market enablers. And the market enablers are one of the most common ones that you find, which are initial access brokers or credential markets, whereby these are just dark web forums where people go and actually sell credentials on the dark web to people. And then these threat actors, because they're actually really cheap, but you can actually get them for $10, $20, depending on the criticality of the environment, use case, depending on the entity. So the higher the, let me call it the entity in terms of like use case, if it may be, let me say, government or healthcare, also so on and so forth, the higher the price of those credentials. So I wanted us to look at initial access, wanted to go deep down into initial access and how it looks like. So when you look at initial access here, you see that it spawns into different things of how an attacker could actually get into your environment. So we have one, valid accounts that someone could be able to actually brute force their way into your organization. Maybe if they find that you have an exposed RDP service on the internet, and then they get access to it. So you could find a brute force and they found default accounts, maybe domain accounts, and so on and so forth. We have trusted relationships. We have supply chain compromise. This is where MSPs fall. Managed service providers. You could find that, let me say, you're using a file transfer service that, as we shall see later on, like Move It, that is used, let me say, by different entities. So in case they compromise the supplier, then they have access to all, let me say, the other entities or customers or clients that supplier has control over. We have replication through movable media. That could be USBs, emails. Then we have phishing, whereby it could be through spear phishing attachment, spear phishing link, or spear phishing via service. So all these actually, phishing is one of the most common entries when it comes to initial access. Then we have drive-by compromises, which happen via Wi-Fi or wireless networks. We have exploiting public-facing applications, which is also another one of the most common ones. we have external remote services, and then hardware additions. We continue again now to see, given that we have had now an overview of what ransomware is, now we need to know who is actually buying this access. And this is where the ransomware as a service comes in. So you have to understand that now, remember way back, as we shall see how the timeline is going to be, these people used to, it was a one-man kind of like team whereby maybe one man, maybe three people, but now people had to find a way of how to make things legitimate, kind of like a modern empire. So you'll find that ransomware as a service, as we have the definition here, which is a business model that cybercriminals develop and sell ransomware tools for profit, have kind of like, if I may say, tools that would not need anyone to know any kind of like, or have any technical expertise to actually run these. And the fact is, it has lowered, let me say, the technical barrier for entry, whereby even if someone really doesn't have those skills, as I mentioned before, you can have access and be able to deploy such services or go for these services. And you can see here on my right that there's kind of like a framework, or there's a kind of like a hierarchy as to which these, let me say, empires or models or business models occur. So if you can see on my right here, we have a botnet, and then we have exploit kits, and then ransomware. So you find that in there, as we shall see in the next slides, that you'll find developers, the developers that create and maintain the ransomware, just like how you have software developers. So the ones that do the encryption, they're the ones that do the payment portals, they're the ones that handle the big sites. Then we have the product team. This is the one that markets the ransomware out there, we shall see ahead. And then we have people who are affiliates, who dark web, of course, and the role of the dark web is actually the backbone of these operations. So you're going to find forums and marketplaces that are used to advertise these tools, and then also to continue to anonymize these transactions. That's where the cryptocurrency comes in, so as to kind of ensure that people are not, either the actors are not really tracked once are undergoing, or when they make payments. So I want us to look at the timeline here, and this is not a comprehensive one, but I want you to look at the managed to move over time. So when you look at, let me say, this was in 1989, that we started with the AIDS Trojan, and this was created by a doctor who just distributed it to attendees, yeah? And it was released on floppy disks, and the demand was so low, it was $189. We go on to 2004, 2005, we have GP Coder. This one was just a message displayed on the user's home screen, and it was telling them that you have to pay ransom. The prices or the ransom keeps on increasing. You'll see it increasing. So we go into 2006, we have a Trojan. This one encrypted the My Documents directory. It was the first ransomware to use RSA encryption. And then after that, we continue all the way just to save some time until we saw some of the biggest, and which was WannaCry, NotPetya, and then DarkSide. And this was, excuse me, these were some of the most notorious attacks that had ever happened out there. So you find that the one for the WannaCry, they say it attacked an estimate of 200,000 computers in 15 countries. And all people claimed, or officials claimed, that it was North Korea behind the attack. So in this, you may find as the years have passed by, it has been attributed, one, to countries, two, to a different or specific, and so on and so forth. So it depends on what someone intends to carry out that actually leads to them doing such. So I wanted us to understand or go briefly into what ransomware as a service is. So when you look at the structure of how this is as a business model, as we explained it, they have developers, we have affiliates, and then the victims, of course, are the people that are affected. We want to look at the business model, and that is revenue sharing, first of all. So developers in this revenue sharing normally take a percentage of, like, let me say 20 to 40, depending on the scheme that the people who did the ransomware or the groups that attributed to this ransomware would want. And the less commission that these developers take, the higher the chances for such ransomware. We continue to have subscription services whereby you're going to see that there are some tools or services that have fixed monthly fees and at times can even have support. You're going to see in front there that they normally have support for such services, just like how you see you have to say 247 support for like your internet service or for fiber internet and so on and so forth. So they also have such. And these monthly fees also normally help expand the infrastructure that they use for these to host these tools, to make more encryption, to advance even the encryption and the detectability of all this to be able to bypass all these AVs that are out there. So you'd find that these tools actually ransomware. Most of these tools, as we shall see in their TTPs, are able to bypass use sophisticated ways to bypass antiviruses, to bypass EDRs, to even kill the EDRs. Yeah. Then we continue to see one-time sellers, or what people normally see as builders, whereby someone actually has a builder and all they have to do is actually just buy it and it's for lifetime. So basically like a lifetime sale. And then we have these ancillary services whereby there's more to it, whereby, as I told you, there's help desks, they have custom feature development, you have access. So when you buy the ransomware, you even have access to, with the package, you even have access to credentials for a certain entity that may have been leaked one way or the other. And then we have, of course, economic incentives. And then there's a new one that actually just came back a few weeks ago. It's called extortion as a service. This one was announced by Lapsus, and they said after today they'll be launching their very first own public extortion as a service. And the way it works is that if you're a ransomware operator and you manage to encrypt a certain entity and you're having difficulty trying to like get ransom from them, all you have to do is use their name. So form of like goodwill. So imagine, let me say, it's like how you'd say you'd go to a shop or a supermarket and you say that Conrad sent me. So when they hear the name Conrad, they know that this is a person who is trustworthy and he or she should be given a service. So when you say, if they say that they are from Lapsus, or Scattered Spider or whatever, what they have to do is that they will know that they are going to get their data back. Hence, they should be able to pay for the service. They should be able to pay the ransom, and everything will go back to normal. So we want to look into, we'll be able to look into as we continue the tools and services offered. We have here ransomware builders. Basically these are tools that are used to come up with what you people call viruses, what people call worms, that are able to actually encrypt files and folders and services and sort of things like that. So we have tools like Quantum Builder. These allow people or affiliates to generate payloads. And then these payloads or the builders have different features as we are going to see forward on how they can be operated. And also still now, given that it's also a service, you're going to find that they have dashboards. So these dashboards are used to monitor first of all, infections, two, payments. So after an infection occurs, they would want to see let me say the entity that was encrypted. Was it able to pay the lump sum that it was requested? Was it able to, how far with the whole negotiation flow? Actually, these people also, even as you'll see, even the support systems, that they have 247 support, but they even help with lawyers. They help with so many things. So it's more of even legalistic when it comes to such a service. And of course, when you look at the economics, first of all, the first thing that they aim for is profitability. They're after money and nothing else. They don't want your files, they don't want your folders, nothing. All they want is money. You clear the money, they let you go. And the ransoms, of course, range. So by the time they extort you and they look through the ledgers or the finance payments that you make, they're able to determine how much the company makes and are able to give you a ransom that should be paid. Then you look at the increase of the variants, the different variants that are out there, the extortion variants. So you look at, there's double, we looked at triple. So the double one, which is just, there's data theft and encryption, meaning that even if you recover the files, even if you have a backup, they have copies of your files. So the only way you have to do, the only thing you have to do now is just to pay, just so that they don't release those files to the public. The other one is accessibility, because now, given that we are connected on the World Wide Web, you can easily connect to the dark web. So it's easy to actually find these platforms. And then there's also, imagine there's low cost, but then there's high rate on investment. So you just use 50 to 100 to $300 for a subscription, and then it attracts actually more people. And then you get to actually have some handsome payouts. But this is not something that we as NITA encourage or stand for. Then they also look at expanding those dark web marketplaces to ensure continuous growth. So those leaked sites that you saw that the developers, as we shall see later on, develop, they ensure that they are able to expand them. They continue to have domains, subdomains, so that more people are called into the business, and just for attractability, if I may say, so that their service can grow. So we're going to have a profile of just a few major ransom, these ransom groups. Want to know what they're known for, the features or characteristics, and then the platforms. And this is how we are going to categorize them. Because when you're profiling these threat actors, you have to profile them according to their tools. They are specific in the way they do their tools are used, their methods, and overall operations, where they host them, and so on and so forth. So these are the factors that you'll have to analyze. One is technical sophistication. You want to look at the complexity and the quality of the ransomware builders. Two, you want to look at the support systems. How are you able to reach out to them in case you've been compromised? For the affiliates, what is the availability of the user manuals? Are they easy to use? Are the video tutorials easy to understand? And then also there are forums in case, as I told you, they have 24/7 support. So in case you have or you need any form of support, you're able to reach out to them and be like, hey, I deployed this ransomware in this entity and it failed to execute. How can I go about this? Three is their pricing models. How do they monetize their tools? Is it subscription based, as we saw, or is it revenue sharing? That after, it's after until you've compromised that we give you your money, or you subscribe to there and they give you that tool, and it's up to you to do what you want to do. And four, we have target audience. So the offerings are designed for everyone. So it could be skilled people, it could be a beginner. It's open to anyone. So you don't have to see how they give out. And also the way they actually sell this is, I believe there's also some kind of like background check, because they know that there are, let me call them, for lack of a better word, threat intel companies, AVs out there that are trying to see how do these people bypass the defenses that they set up, and so on and so forth. So our first key threat actor, the one that has kind of been notorious this year, is Kidin. And it has been tracked as a gender that emerged in 2022. It has rapidly grown to be one of the most aggressive for my rating this year, and it operates as an affiliate model. So it has that whole thing of developers and affiliates, and they are not a one-man team. And they normally go in for very many different organizations, and they have not been limited to different to countries. But the country, as you will see later on, that they're Russian-speaking, organization, but they don't. Most of these are times Russian-speaking groups, and you'll find that it's very hard to hear that they went after a Russian country or Russia or even China or any other country that they're allies with. So what contributes to the success? Before we go to the success, we want to look at how do they move within your entity. The first thing is they have to do, as we saw the MITRE ATT&CK framework, discovery. They want to know what devices or what public-facing servers are these entities looking at. Two, you look at Screen Connect. After them, let me say, finding that they have access to like RDP or something like that, or they find an entity that has an exposed instance of Screen Connect. Then that's when they're going to, as we saw in the MITRE ATT&CK framework, do a Screen Connect to that instance that is available over the internet. And if they find that let me say, it doesn't have default credentials, or they cannot be able to, how can I say, access it one way or the other, like VA vulnerability, because most times they use CVEs. That's when they're going to do spear phishing. They're going to spear phish a link to maybe one of your admins. So you're going to find, as you can see on our left-hand side here, that they sent someone a login credential and another login an email, and they were asking that, your Screen Connect instance was recently logged into from a new address, and they'll even show you an address and so on and so forth. And they will say, if you authorize this, because now it looks, first of all, it looks realistic. This is how a Screen Connect email would look like. So now you have to, you're tempted to log in and see. Now, this is where they get their initial access is actually chipped from through spear phishing. So they log in with what they call it, with the authorized credentials, and then from there they are able to now fast track into the entire environment. So when you look at from getting access into the environment with valid credentials, first of all, that helps cover the traces of or cover their footprints, because you would be able to see if with your defenses that maybe someone is trying to brute force their instance or whatever. These people try and aim for legitimate credentials to try and cover their tracks. Now, when you go into now that they have landed into your environment, what are they trying to do? They're trying to go in for defense evasion, which is killing. Which is killing, maybe say your EDRs, killing the AV, whereby they go in for EDR sandblast. These are just EDR killers trying to silence them. Then from there, they deploy credential theft through Mimikatz, and then continue to all the way to kind of like peruse through via lateral movement using PSXZEC until they go until they exfiltrate data. So you'll find that one, they have aggressive tactics. It is a short, high impact intrusion that happens. So within, because I've seen within, like, let me say 30 minutes, depending on the institution, or they would have finished their operation and what they want within that entity. Another thing that you'd have to look out for is the tooling sophistication and the kind of the encryption that they use. Most times they use variants. If you look at the variants that they normally use, they're either written in Go, Rust, or C++. For higher interaction, given that Windows is written with C++, so they need to interact with those APIs. So this enables, flexible attack chains that help with credential theft and also fast encryption. And then another thing is also operational craftcraft. So and selective targeting rules. As I told you, that there's a way they handle how they do their things. There's a way how they they handle the entities that they attack. They don't attack every entity. They don't attack every country. There are specific countries they go for. So this is how some of I'm going to. We shall continue interchanging, and I'll show you how the threat actors, how their ransom notes look like, how some of their leak sites look like, just to have a feel without actually having to go and harm yourself on the dark web. So this is how the recovery note looks like. And then still down here on my right, you'll be able to see their leak site and what they were claiming they had and what they wanted to leak. We continue on to one of the other notorious ones, which was Lockbit, that was taken down in Operation Kronos. And this one was first seen around 2019, but it grew and really blew up last year, 2024. And it had so many, let me say, builders that were out that are kind of like ransomware variants that enabled it to continue in operation. Because of time, and was lifted to 1 hour, I may not really explain or go deep into everything, but they have this same kind of like tradecraft, just like everyone. And even them, their attack vectors are also limited, of course, through purchased access, unpatched vulnerabilities, insider access, and zero-day exploits. So why I focused on insider access is that these, of course, can be employees that give out these credentials for, of course, return on, for some, let me say, kind of like a return on profit, for lack of a better word. So you find an employee, maybe actually a disgruntled employee, who is not at the right times, let me say, with the higher ups in the company, and is willing to give away information or access for a certain fee. These are people that they actually go to, the attackers go to, and actually get access into this. And they also, another thing they would have to look out for is operation resilience or tradecraft, that even after their takedown, you find that given that they are spread all over the world, it's very hard to actually go after some of these people. So they kind of like reemerge through like the affiliates, because even if they take down the infrastructure, they gave out some of their code and so on and so forth to these buy, so they can just reach out to a person or a customer that they knew and they'd be like, hey, can you kindly just give me or share with me what I sold you, and then I rebrand and organizations. And when you continue to look how they have access into these entities, you realize that when they come now let me say, I'm going to give an example that may not apply to this, but like there was a compromise of Big F5, the one that does the firewalls, and they had been there for 12 months. But you can see from this that once they have access, as you can see from here, that someone has access from an externally facing server, and then they get access, let me say, to RDP. They deploy ngrok for RDP tunneling, get into the environment, use PSexec for lateral movement, continue to do credential theft, and then still until they manage to, let me say, disable AVs or EDRs, and then later on the impact is seen from the lockbit deployment and then deletion of backups so that you cannot be able to reclaim any backups one way or the other. And most times they use legitimate, let me say, backup tools to actually exfiltrate your data. So you find that they're exfiltrating or they are moving your data from using tools like rclone, megasync, filezilla, and so on and so forth. So sometimes most of this telemetry looks actually, let me say, authentic, but then it's up to you to actually see that if there's a large transfer in a short period of time, that should be a sign to you that there's something that's going on. Another thing you'd have to look out for is also evidence or log deletion. That's one of the things that the ransomware normally does. So just in a nutshell here, this is how the log bit looks like, and also some of the ransom notes that we shall see in the demo. The last one is Akira, and this one came in 2023. For them, they are mostly targeting people in North America, Europe, and Australia. And they also do for them, their mode of operation is actually legitimate access. Legitimate access, I mean going on the dark web and looking for credentials, going on the dark web and looking for form of RDP logins and any form of legitimate credentials so as to lessen their form of, like, let me say, they don't want to have a hectic time or a long time trying to get or brute force access into the environment. They want the easy way in so as they could have faster payouts. So they still have the same characteristics just as the rest. The only thing is just the only form or difference is their initial access and some of, let me say, the tools that they use in, let me say, trying in defense evasion and so on and so forth. And just in case for those, let me say, the entities that have been affected and you've been ransomed and you're trying to look out for the data that has been on the dark web, this is how some of their website or leak site looks like. And down below is we just have like their attack chain of how they do things. So you can see that credentials are purchased from underground markets, and then they do a net scan in the environment, and then from there they're able to just deploy any disk which is living off the land. And then from there, they're able to peruse through the entire environment and continue to do impact, which is the ransomware that you see. We continue on to Clop, which is also another ransomware gang. And it was best known to have affected Movit, which was the Movit vulnerability chain in 2023. And for them, what they were doing is that they were trying to exploit a certain CVE, which was 2023. And then they would drop a web shell named human2.aspx. So you find that they drop this web shell into the server, then they are able to transfer, once they get a foothold within those servers, the files that are within the MSP that was affected to their C2. So this was an MSP compromise, a supply chain compromise that happened, and it was because the threat actor, which was global ransomware, weaponized the 0-day at that time that had not yet been known, so as to compromise different entities that were using the Movit technology at that time. And then we have a small view here of how their ransom note looked like, and then how their leak site looked like. So you could find that in case you've been nicked or if you've been compromised, they're able to show you your headquarters. As I told you, they're able to estimate the revenue that you make so as to be able to determine the payout that they need to ask you for. So we continue to understand now, given that we have seen how these ransomware operators move, what do they use? What do they use, let me say, to actually come up with this ransomware that we already talked about? And these are the builders. So the builders just have, these are tools that are designed to create ransomware payloads, but they are simplified in a way that you don't have to code, you don't have to run the code or make the code yourself. All you have to do is just have a few or select a few features of what you want to be done, and then it will be deployed on the target. So the features that you see here is one, user-friendly interface. That's why I told you it's very easy for even a person who doesn't have the skill to deploy them. Two, customization, whereby you're able to configure these aspects. So you can be able to configure that I want this ransom not to look like this. I want this this payment details to look like this. I want this encryption algorithm. Three is anti-detection features, whereby you don't want it to be detected. Let me say that you found out or from like someone, from an insider that use, let me say, Kaspersky for EVI. So someone is able to actually make ransomware that actually bypasses specifically Kaspersky. And then also scalability, whereby these people are actually able to integrate these builders with just more than one, let me say, toolkit. So you find that it's not only a ransomware builder, but you also find that you can also do phishing. Maybe it could be able to bypass MFA. It could be able to help, not bypass, sorry, do MFA. Maybe it could be rather capture MFA. It could be able to have exploit kits that could go further ahead, that in case it compromises, maybe you should be able to call back to this and so on and so forth, as we shall see. And then the fifth thing which makes them different from others are the support services that come with them, that the builder is going to come with a user guide, just like how you'd have a user guide for a firewall, for a switch, video tutorials, and customer support to assist the people that actually buy this. So we're going to go ahead and actually deploy some of these builders live. I'm going to do it in a controlled environment, but I wanted to show you, first of all, how these builders look like. I just wanted to peruse through them. One builder, which is called Quantum Builders, you can see they even advertise them, and they say this is your chance to try cutting edge technology. So you're able to, one, with this builder, spoof any extension. You're able to use different icons. So someone could click on a Microsoft link and they think on a Microsoft document link, thinking it's opening a Word document, and yet it's an executable. Three is that they're able to bypass Windows Smart Screen and so on and so forth as the features that the person can offer. So the next one that I would be showing you would be the Redline Info Stealer. Now this one is not a builder, but this one is just an info stealer. Basically, now this one is used to actually just it's for data harvesting. So what this does is that this is the first step of kind of like initial access. That what happens is that you're going to go and possibly, let me say, download your movie from a shady website or something like that. And by the time it lands, or maybe you have an application that you want that is cracked, and by the time it lands on your machine won't be able to detect it, because for it, what it's doing is that all it's gathering is information. So it's looking for browser data, cryptocurrency wallets, application credentials, and then harvests all those, sends them back to the attacker infrastructure for further use. So if someone lands on your wallets, if someone lands on, let me say, your saved credentials, browser saved credentials, they're able to actually exfiltrate them, and then that's how they are sold on the dark web. So that's how you see, by the way, sometimes that for some instances, if it's not like a genuine hack of someone has compromised your social media or whatever, you'd find that you actually downloaded something shady and it stole your credentials, and then someone bought those credentials and managed to hijack your account. The next one that we'll have on our list is going to be the Lockbit Builder. This is the one that we talked about, and because this is Dimitri, he was the one behind of facilitating the ransomware. but you're going to see how easy it is to actually deploy this builder. And when it comes also to evasion and obfuscation and so on and so forth, that you'll find that even the only thing that you'll see happening in the VM is that it will just tell you activate maybe this, or it may not even show you what is going on in the background, depending on how stealthy this is. But for the builders that we have, they're already detected and have been passed through AVs, so they are common, like they are common to these AV vendors, so these are publicly accessible. We continue on to the last one, which will be Chaos Builder. And for Chaos Builder, now this one is I wanted to have one that is more technical, another one that is graphical for us to see. And this one is more versatile in nature because you'll be able to see the different features that we'll be able to deploy with this one. So for this one, you're able to actually do the ransomware, you're able to do more and more. You can see data wipers and denial of service toolkits. You're able to also even change in with the encryption. You're able to also do, let me say, make it hard for file recovery to be done without an actual decryption key. So at times you may find that when encryption occurs within some entities, there's a way they can go there. There are sites that I think it's called No Ransom. It's a website that has all this decryption tool, all the keys that you can go, and if you're attacked by ransomware that is known by that non-profit organization, it's an NGO. If you're attacked by it, then you're going to find that you can actually be able to use the key that those people have and then decrypt. But then there are times whereby now the person or the affiliate that got this wants you to use specifically their key, and their key is not accessible anywhere else. That's when you have to pay for this ransom. So you're going to see how these things go about. So I'm going to be sharing my screen in a minute. Just want us to kindly confirm that it can be seen. Okay, can be seen. So this is just a controlled environment. We're going to start with, let me just maximize this a bit. So to end this. Okay, let me just do this. Okay, so this is my Windows virtual machine. Of course, it's not connected to the internet or anything like that. So this is supposed to be, it's not supposed to be done. Kindly don't do it on your machines, on your work machines. I highly recommend, and I put a precaution to this. This is for webinar purposes only. It's to be shown here. In case you need this to be performed for you in your organization or something like that, it can be organized anywhere, anytime. You can contact me on LinkedIn or through NITA for ministries and agencies. But this is supposed to be done by only IT professionals. I highly encourage you, and I put it as a disclaimer once more, do not do this on your local machines. So we looked at, we're going in for the first builder, which is, just want to put this. There it is. We're going in for the first builder, which is Quantum. Just give it a minute. And also install Redline. I think I'm seeing here that this has also already shown up. Okay. So as you can see here, this is how this looks like. This is Quantum Builder, and it has stages. For those in IT, you'd be able to understand that, or in cybersecurity, that there are there are stages to how things execute. So remember, I told you that you could download something and it looks like PowerPoint, it could look like an icon, and so on and so forth. So now when an attacker is trying to hide their, if I may call it, it's trying to hide their executable or their ransomware somewhere, you'd have to pick an icon from this. So let me say I pick this, it will of course appear here. You can, if you have your infrastructure where you want it to call back to once it's executed, you'd have options here, and then you'd be able to build. So it'd go to the second stage that, okay, when the link is tapped, when the link is let me say if it calls back to this, what do you want it to do? Download the second stage. So now that you tapped on the link, it's going to go in and look for another, for the next payload that it wants it to execute on the machine. So as I told you, you can see here for those who are into IT, the system admins, that you can be able to disable USC. Yeah, you can be able to prompt it if you want to. You can even be able to bypass it. And by the time you prompt it, I think even the affiliates themselves or the hacker has mercy on you just to show you that this is happening. You can be able to do an anti-VM that in case someone lands on your, how can I, on the ransomware itself, and they're trying to, let me say, do forensics on it, you can refuse it from being done what? From being looked into or being analyzed. So when you click on anti-VM, if someone tries to, if let me say, analyze the ransomware in one way or the other, then it will look gibberish to them. Then the third one that is really dangerous is this disk packer. So if for all of you that have, okay, for a while, if you've understood that an ISO or an image is normally big, an ISO like Windows 10, Windows 10, Windows 11 ISO is normally like really big, really, it's, and if you notice, it's never scanned by Windows Defender. So you find that most AVs never scan these ISOs. Why? Because they believe that these are installation media. So they don't believe that installation media will be able to carry malware inside there. So what you can do is actually come and pack or put your ransomware or your payload inside this, and then it will be able to build. And so when you give it to, when you decide to give it, you decide to give this let me say this ISO to someone and you have a malicious intent, it will bypass the AV. But that's not in case anymore because it was known or it was discovered way before. We continue then to Redline. Now this one is the info stealer that I told you about. So for this info stealer, what you want to do is its aim is actually for just getting initial access. Basically, we want to find or we want to get credentials for initial access. Maybe the person doesn't have access to, they don't have access to, like they're not able to buy the ransomware, they're not able to buy this builder that we have here. So they decide to go for a cheaper version of, let me say, just stealing credentials so as to take over accounts. So you'd be able to come here and then set up, an icon. If you have an icon, you'd be able to set it up here. So what you can do with this builder is, if you can see your logs, we were able to tell you, first of all, one, the logs from here, what has been compromised, which IP, which country, and so on, and which build. It can even give you statistics of what was collected. You can be able to list the tasks that you want it to do after compromise. You're able to even sort the logs that if it's from this country, I don't want logs from this country, I don't want credentials from this country, I don't want this from this country, and then building. So I wanted us to build something here. So just going to put the, let me say if you have a server that is running, let me say 2.2.2, and then you have, you want to isolate that, let me say 1.2.3.4 is the malware or the, I mean, is the stealer that you're going to use for Uganda. And then when you say, oh, maybe 2.5.6 actually. So 2.5.6 could be for, let me say what 2.5.6 could be for, how they call it again. Excuse me. 2.5.6 is going to be for Uganda and so on and so forth. So that's where we'd be able to actually come up with this stealer. So when the stealer comes in, or when the malware comes in that you've downloaded, and it's actually saved, let me just save it here. So let me say you've managed to get, let me say you're looking for a paid, you're looking for something that is paid. This is where the issues come in, that you're looking for something that is paid. You're looking for something that is, if I may say, you're looking for a free tool that is paid, but you don't have access to it, but you need its services, and you find something like this. By the time it's executed and you run it, what happens is that it's going to execute, and most times it will disappear from your screen. That's why you find that, as you can see here, it has actually disappeared from where it was. So you find that you're trying to run something, it's being funny, it's disappearing. That's when you know that actually something is not right with what you just got, and you should be more cautious about it. If you're not getting it from somewhere, that's right. The next one that we'd actually be going in for is Lockbit, that I want us to look into and how it looks like. So as you can see, it's actually so easy to deploy. Once you buy that, when someone buys the files from, let me say, the internet, or as I told you, the dark web and so on and so forth, and they manage to actually get a hold of it, then all they need to do is actually just build, they just need to build the what? They just need to build the ransomware or the payload, and then they'll be able to execute it. So as you're going to see how the prompt comes in, all they'll tell you is that press any key to generate these files. So when you generate the files, of course, it's going to generate for you everything that is needed. And once you're done with once it's done generating, given as I told you that it's so easy to do what? It's so easy to, how they call it again, run these things. All someone has to do is actually just run this within your environment. So when they have access to environment and they click on this executable, all this executable is actually sent to you, or one way or the other, then and they click it, then that's how the ransomware gets to spread. So as we see that we managed to deploy this, or we managed to click on the executable, it could be maybe you downloaded Putty, maybe you downloaded something from somewhere, and you just clicked on the executable. You could be at work, excuse me, someone sent you a link, or someone sent you something to download and you don't know what it is. And because maybe it's coming from a familiar email, you decide to to click it, then these are the results of everything that could happen. So you find that it will give us the note, and most times this is how maybe you come in on a Monday morning, an unfortunate Monday morning, and you land on these executable, on rather these notes that tell you that you have been hacked and so on and so forth. Most times, as you can see, you don't even have control over the machine itself, because it ensures to like actually encrypt every single thing that is there on the machine. So you can see some of the telltale signs to show that you've been hacked one way or the other is the extensions of your file or the documents are actually changed. So you're going to find that at the end of it, you'll find that there's gibberish at the end of most files. You're going to find that you cannot access the machine that you're trying to access. The machine gets slower, and it actually cripples your work. So at this instance right now, you can see it's a bit difficult for me to access some of these files one or the other, but you can see from here that it has actually changed, or there's a readme, so there are few files here, but then it becomes hard for me to actually control some of the files that I'm trying to access. Then the last one, which is going to be the builder that I wanted us to look into, which is Chaos Builder, that is actually, if you may, a bit more graphical friendly, something that you can use, that people normally use out there. It may not be necessarily this one, but others, that you find that it helps you to actually be able to perform these tasks or operations easier when affiliates normally get access to this. So I'll just give it a few minutes as it loads, and then I set the screen to this. Give me a few minutes, seconds actually. Okay, then the last one we're going to look at here is going to be the builder for Chaos ransomware. Now this one is going to, I think this is in case you have anything that you'd want to, set how you would want it to look like, how you'd want it to operate. This is how you set it. So when it comes to actual encryption of this, just give me a minute as it loads. This is more user-friendly, that when they are bought from the dark web, you find that all someone has to do is actually just try and work it out. So you can see how it looks like in the screenshot. This is how it looks like. And you can see the different things that it can do. So you find that you can randomize so many things like the file extension. You can decide to spread it over a network. You can decide to go via processes, and then how you want, if machine has been compromised, how you want it to look like. So let me say I wanted to set a specific message. I can be able to actually set it here that in case your computer was infected by ransomware, so contact me on 772 what, any contact that you want. And then for more advanced options, as I told you, you're able to resist for administrative privileges. You're able to delete backups that are within entities, within the environment. And then you can even change the desktop wallpaper. So if I wanted to, let me say I'm just going to take like a small, just something small. I want to just have this taken. Okay, I think it's taking a bit long. I would have used this, but because of time, I'm just going to actually close this and try to have it build. So this could be RaaS. Okay. I need to make it go on a small screen or something. I don't know, it's taking long. I don't know, I think I'll come back to that because of time. I think it's because of time. But then as we continue, as I leave that to display, let's see if I can do this. Actually leave it and I'll continue possibly in the background if it reacts or something. Okay. So the next thing, as we have seen, how those builders normally operate or how they actually work out, is that we'd want to look into how these platforms operate, or how they operate or they function on the dark web. So if you realize that some of the aspects that you look for in the dark web, or the things that people normally look out for, are the product listings. Yes. So when you look at the product listings, you're able to see that there are most times user reviews. You're going to look at and want to see the person that used this ransomware, the person that bought the ransomware, what did they do, what did they see, was it effective, and so on and so forth. Maybe developer communications, frequently asked questions, and so on and so forth. What if they have also support channels, as you can see just from here that it's executed and you're able to have it contacted, they can give you communication channels or contact channels, and you continue that. So let me just get back to this. Okay, so we're looking at key aspects to explore. We have product listings. So you want to look at the advertised features. Was it able to do what you wanted it to do? The pricing models. We talked about user reviews and then the developer communications. So you'll be able to find that when they're selling such ransomware, they normally come up with such. They give you a program and they give you the tools that are actually out there. So you find that they tell you that this tool can be able to do ABC. And if it's what you need, then you go for it. However, the downside of all this, of course, which is the good side for us, is that most times there are people out there, such as the national SAT here in Uganda, and then combined with other SATs, are able to come up with, if I may say, forms of takedown so as to come after these bad actors or these threat actors. So you can find that you'll be able to see that this site, or you go across sites and you find that they have such a display, and it was law enforcement that took on such operations. So you find that the national SAT, together with other SATs all over the world, all over countries, are able to actually come together with Europol and take down these malicious actors. So we wanted, as we wrap up here, because this is the last slide, ways to mitigate such ransomware. So we are going to move in a pathway of prevent, detect, respond, and recover. So the first thing that we would want to actually look at is identity access. Yeah. So when you look at this, or let me say, managing or enforcing, let me say MFA, removing local admin privileges or things like that. Basically, when you're looking at ensuring that admins don't have permanent always on super access, and that the credentials should be used for a short or specific time window to perform a certain task. So you're just trying to reduce the attack surface, yeah, and making it hard for an attacker to actually find and steal them as the credentials. The second thing would be just patching and vulnerability management. And what you want to do is that once you have, or you know that you have such assets in the environment, you'd ensure that you prioritize them and you give them the immediate patches that they need. And the first thing that even before you even give them patches, you have to first do inventory of the assets that you have, because you cannot protect what you don't know. Yeah. The next thing that would have to be there would be network segmentation, that just in case an attacker has access to one machine, they cannot be able to open to another machine. It should be in form of segmented in form of like VLANs, or in a way that it becomes harder to move from one network segment to another. Then another one would be deploying MSA endpoint, or doing application hardening through EDRs, endpoint and detection and response tools. And this should come, of course, with detections and so on and so forth, any other features that the vendor could be able to offer. We could be able to do also supply chain controls, that if you have a vendor, they should be able to match certain baselines that if they're going to have or work with you at any one moment. They should be able to have carried out audits. They should have, service level agreements that should match what you're looking for or entailing for. We'd be able to also look at telemetry, that you should be able to have something that collects such logs within your entity. You should be able to see what happens, what takes place within your environment. 4 is that you have to be able to actually correlate now, after that you have detection and telemetry within your environment. Now you should begin now looking that if a user, let me say, clicked on a certain link and there was an anonymous login from a location that is not familiar to you, you should know that has been a form of compromise. So you should act towards it. And then when it comes to now responding, where it's incident response and containment, the first thing is you should be able to have pre-authorized, kind of like playbooks in place that ensure that in case an incident happens, you isolate the hosts. And when it means isolate, do not turn off, because you need to preserve evidence. 2 is block any kind of outbound or inbound communication that you're not familiar with. Disable compromised accounts, and then you have to capture memory or disk images. Then we have backups and recovery, whereby you have to maintain 3 to 1 backups, whereby you have 3 offline copies, 3 copies that are stored onto different media, and then they are backed off elsewhere. And you should normally protect, and actually the last one actually normally represents offsite. So you should have media that you have 3 copies of your data, and they're in 2 types of media, whereby 1 copy is actually stored offline and offsite. Then the last one that we normally do for different entities is governance and exercise, though it's shortened, whereby you conduct tabletop drills and you ensure that you try and learn how, let me say, play out in case an incident occurred, who is able to handle what, who is able to say this, how will the PR or the communications group handle, or what do they have to say to the public, so as to ensure business continuity. With that being said, I'd like to thank you for your time and thank you for joining in, and I hope it was educational. Over to you, Anita.
Thank you, Conrad, for that presentation. Let's just dive into the questions. I have some 2 questions for you. One, you can just throw light around. This was someone had concerns. They usually get links from, from PDPO, NITAU, or even other organizations on invites. Oh, attend this webinar. So can you throw light on how they can, what they need to look out for, and not just click on those links?
Okay, the first thing that you'd want to look out for is the conversion of the link. It doesn't hurt for you to go on the internet and actually get that, look at, let me say, if you've seen an email and you know that account.microsoft. It's always account.microsoft.com, and then you go and search out for it. Don't click the link, but go and search out and see if it's the correct link. Most times, even if it's coming from something from a phishing perspective, you're able to see the convection that Microsoft uses, and you'd be able to tell that it's not this. 2 is to look out for very, very long links that are just really long and they don't make sense to you. Another thing is even if the email comes to you, you have to know that you're in control. Try and play down on the emotions that you have. Even if you received an email in the morning that tells you that your bank account has been hacked, the thing is that is creating a sense of fear and directing you now most times to do something that is not supposed to be done, which is, if let me say, trying to recover. They could tell you, if you want to recover this, if you've seen those people, let me say the influencers on TikTok and so on and so forth, they have these issues whereby someone could tell them that your account has been hacked or social media or something like this. Reach out to ABC or click this link. So you have to actually be careful on not going according to that and trying to search out and see what's the right conversion and what are the communication methods that TikTok or that vendor uses to actually reach out in case of such scenarios. Or given that you're in Uganda, it doesn't hurt to actually call the person or call the entity that is responsible for any accounts that you hold and reach out and see how to go about it. Yeah.
Okay. Maybe can you think there was please comment on MX tool for email head analyzer. That will be the last question. If you can just throw some light on that.
Okay. So for investigating emails, most times they are just, if I may say, for open source tools, there are websites that can be able to analyze those emails. The email headers gives you the original or where it was coming to and so on and so forth. I'll just have to get that email here. This is that my desktop is a bit crowded, but even if you just search for online email header analyzers, there's one, it's a bit killer, just forgotten how it is, but you could be able to actually get one that whereby if you want to analyze your email, you would right click on the 3 dots. If you're using Gmail, right click on the 3 dots of that email, retrieve the original email, and then it's called an original email, original text or whatever, and then paste the headers. You're able to paste the headers within that analyzer, and it will be able to give you the information that you want. Actually, if for those who know the website called Whois has an online email header analyzer, just also as part of the tools that they have. So they don't do only domain lookups and so on and so forth, but they also do search. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Maybe a few last words for our participants, and we'll come to the close of the session.
Okay. The final thing is, I feel like I would encourage that everyone or entities out there have more insight within they have more insight within their environments, because the thing that leads to most of minus, let me say, skill gap or whatever is insight within environments, basically telemetry. So we don't have enough you may find that most entities don't have telemetry or cannot gather telemetry within their environment. So you find that these attacks can can happen without them actually knowing, without them, let me say, having a clue. So what do I mean by they don't have telemetry? You don't have EDRs in place. You don't have security information or event monitoring tools in place that should be able to capture such incidents that happen, and then you act towards them. So my final message would be just promoting insight within environments through deployment of such tools. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Conrad, for that really in-depth and rich particular session on ransomware and ransomware as a service models. And for the participants, thank you for joining us and for your active engagement throughout today's session. I hope you are living with better understanding of the ransomware landscape and what practical strategies you need to put in place in your organizations. So as we continue to mark cybersecurity awareness month, please remember that cybersecurity is everyone's responsibility, and not just online, but also offline. So remember to stay vigilant, informed, and always be like a guard. Thank you, and have a great weekend ahead. Thank you. Bye.